What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Life in All Directions. I'm your host, Dante Street, and this one right here, this is really close to my heart. But first, I want to give a shout out to every single last one of you that caught the first episode, that watched a reel on social media. It truly means the absolute world to me, and I really want to thank all of you for coming along with me on this journey. But today, we're going to talk about parenting. This one right here, this one is really close to my heart. So, what makes a good parent? How do you know if you're even doing it right? Look, I'm not here to give you some textbook answer. I'm just here to give you some real talk. Because if you're anything like me, God, you've had days where you've absolutely crushed it. Then you probably have had some days where you're like, man, I probably could have done that better. So let's actually start out with what makes a good parent. To me, a good parent isn't perfect. There's someone that's present. It's not about having all the right answers. It's about being there. To me, it's about showing up, being consistent, leading with love. Some of you may recognize that. But also having structure and also time. I mean, to me, good parents listen, even when they're tired. Lord knows there's times where you're just absolutely beat up. And, today was one of them. I had a late night at work, and my little man is up early and he's ready to go. And I am on minimal sleep. And I'm trying to do the best I can with him with minimal sleep. And I know that it tests my patience for sure. So that's definitely something that I've wanted to work on, and I'm going to continue to work on. But to me, good parents also set boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable. A good parent admits when they mess up and shows their kids what growth looks like. And there's times where I've definitely have had to say I'm sorry. And even though my little man is 2 and probably doesn't even know what that means yet, but I also want him to let him know that, like, I am sorry. There are times where I'm probably impatient and I should be a little bit more patient with things. But the beauty of it is we get to take a deep breath and we get to try again tomorrow. And you know what? That's being a good parent too. So I just understand that we're going to make mistakes, and I think none of us would ever think that we're perfect or ever think that we have it all figured out, or there's this magical blueprint that you have to being the perfect parent. But when you look at how do you know you're a good parent, to me, this is tough. I mean, there's no actual report card that actually gets handed out to you for parenting. I mean, I guess you could look at the obvious, right? If, CPS or somebody's not showing up to take your kid away, I mean, I guess that's a good start. But here's what I've learned. You're doing something right when your kid feels safe enough to be themselves around you. And I think in this day and age, kids have to feel comfortable around being themselves. And I think the only way they're going to ever open up to you is when they feel comfortable enough to be themselves. Look, not one of us, again, are perfect. We're not quiet. We're definitely, and our kids can just be, they're just out, not being obedient at times. They're not listening. They're loud, and you're just trying to figure all of this out. But when your kid can express themselves around you, and again, I have a really young toddler, and I still think there's ways that he expresses himself to me. They're not exactly the ways that I hope for, but, sometimes that's him screaming at me, and I think that's him not understanding his emotions yet, but we're going to get there. But, when they make a mistake, you got to make them feel loved. To me, I think that's one of the things that I've seen, from other dads and parents that I've seen handle their kids. And, I think you have to be able to ask them questions, and they have to be able to trust you with asking those questions and not have any type of fear or truth in your, or just have any fear at all in your response, So to me, I think when they're able to talk to you without any type of fear, that to me is when you're winning, even if it doesn't always feel like it, but when they're able to keep it real with you, I think that's a great way to go. And I think that you're doing a great job. Definitely, if your kids are opening up to you, then I think you're doing something right. Again, in no shape, form, or fashion am I telling somebody how to be a parent or like you should do this or do that. Like I definitely, again, don't have it all figured out. But I think if you're able to care for your kid, and I think if you're able to listen to them and let them feel heard, I think that's a great way to go. And I think you're off to a great start. So I definitely tip my hat to you. Now, one of the things, we have to look at too is, these are just some real tools I will give you from a real parent. is it's quality over quantity. And I think even if you're just spending 15 minutes alone with them, one of the exercises I try to do with my kid is I will give him 15 to 20 minutes of whatever he wants to do. There's no TV, there's no distractions. If he wants to play with toys, if he wants to read, if he just wants to run around and spin in circles, like whatever he wants to do, it is undistracted time. I put my phone in another room and I give him that absolute undivided attention. And I think that I've seen some positive results in that. But one of the things we also have to look at is we can't parent from guilt. Like, we have to lead with purpose, not shame. Like, just understand that your past doesn't define you as a parent. And that's one of the things I've really started to learn, is that my past is not going to define me as a parent. I'm not going to take out things on my kid that I felt were either done to me or that should have been done or should have, all of that stuff you got to put to the side. And I think you just have to really try to put yourself and your kid in the best opportunity to be successful. But also, I think it's being the model of what your kids want to see, and what you want to see out of your kids. You have to be that role model that you want them to admire, right? But also, one of the things I've come to really learn is that it takes a village, and it really does take a village to raise your kids. And I think just having positive people and positive support groups, and I've gotten really lucky. Like, I have two really good friends that have helped me with my kid, that have helped me, basically be a nanny to him, and they're able to pick him up from daycare and be able to be there for him. And I've gotten some support from my mom, his grandmother on his mom's side. I mean, he has a ton of support, which is huge. And I think that, again, you have to have a village. And even just bringing him around, like, my friends' kids and being able to play with their kids, and just learning from them and seeing all of that stuff. And I think that's huge. But I think the one thing we really have to do, and I'm kind of a jokester and I'm a prankster, and no one's exempt, not even my kid. He gets it too. So, but I think you got to be able to laugh. You know what I mean? You got to be able to laugh with your kids. And I try to get him laughing as much as I can, just because I love hearing his laugh. Like, I think that's the greatest joy for me, is getting to hear him laugh and smile. Even though there's hard days where he's yelling and screaming at me, or he doesn't understand something, so he's throwing a tantrum. And yes, the terrible twos do exist. But you learn how to forgive that very quickly, because they can just come running up to you with the biggest smile, and you put all that in the past. So, one thing I'll say is, like, in a reflection of being a parent, I'm still learning every day. There are days where I feel like a superhero, and then there's days where I feel like I am absolutely the worst parent and I have no idea what I'm doing. But the one thing I can tell you is I'm never going to stop trying. I'm never going to stop learning. I actually just bought a new book, and I literally just forget the name of it. I got to bring it over here to you guys, but I actually just put it on my Instagram yesterday. So if you've seen that story, it's up there. The one thing we can do as parents, especially dads, right? I mean, moms, you guys are always going to get a bunch of support and credit, but dads, trust me, never stop loving your kid, no matter what the situation is. You're never going to stop loving your kid. And I think if you're doing that, you're a good parent. So again, we're going to make this very short but sweet. But to every parent listening, whether you're raising a toddler, a teen, or just thinking even of becoming a parent someday, give yourself a little bit of grace. Parenting isn't about perfection. It's about intention. And I think if you have good intent, you're being a good parent. Now just keep in mind, you got to show up every day. And if you're showing up, you're trying, oh man, that already makes you better than you think. But if this episode hits home, do me a favor, share it with another parent. Leave a review, drop a comment. Let's build this village together. And again, please like, subscribe, follow us, Life in All Directions on all socials. We got so much more coming for you guys. And again, I am so incredibly thankful for all of you just even taking a peek at this thing on this amazing journey. This is Dante Street. I'm just reminding you in this. You're not alone. You're doing better than you think. And if you're a kid, your kid is actually lucky to have you, actually. So keep doing the best job you can. And if you have any questions or just anything I can help with, please reach out. I'm always happy to be there. So join us on the next episode of Life in All Directions, and let's see what direction life is taking you in. Keep walking your path. Until next time, peace.